Okay, everyone, good morning. Here I am in my office behind me. I thought we could tackle a task 1 bar chart, the writing assignment this morning. So feel free to follow along with me. I'm going to walk you through every step of the way. So we're going to go from the beginning where we analyze the graph, and we'll finish with a lovely 150-word report by the end of the lesson. Okay. So I'm going to teach you how I approach writing an Ielts task 1 bar chart essay or report. Follow along with me, and then in the next video I'll follow up with a model answer to the practice assignment, which will be your next piece of work that you need to do. Okay, great. So let's get started. So here is the bar chart that we will tackle in this lesson. Okay. So as I said, I'm going to walk you through step by step how I suggest, or how I would approach answering this question. Okay, and then in the next step, in the next lesson, I'm going to give you another bar chart. I'll let you have a go at that yourself, using the language that we've studied too. See how you get on, and then watch the video after to see my model answer and how I go about answering it. See if you did it the same way that I would. Okay. Okay, let's start and have a look at this graph. Okay. So when we are approaching a task 1 writing assignment like this, what's the first thing we need to do? Okay, the first thing that we have to do is to look very carefully at the information. So the best place to start is clearly the title. Okay, the chart shows the percentage of Spanish people who had breakfast at home between 2002 and 2008. Okay, so yeah, Spanish people having breakfast at home. Yeah. So bear in mind, guys, these statistics are not real. Okay, these are bar charts made by me for this course. So I don't actually know how many Spanish people have breakfast at home. I suspect it's less than this, because when I lived there, people used to go to cafes in the morning and have sort of toast and tomato and coffee. So maybe it'll be less than this, but it doesn't really matter. It's just an example for our course. Okay, so the chart shows the percentage of Spanish people who had breakfast at home between 2002 and 2008. So we have information in the title already. It's Spanish people, we know it's the percentage, we know it's about breakfast at home, and we have the time. Where can we find these details? Where can we find this information? Okay, so here we are. Here's the actual title. Okay. And here on the side here, it talks about the percentage of people. So we can see that these numbers 10 to 100 reflect percentage of Spanish people. Okay, And then obviously along the bottom, we have the years, the dates. And then we have our key. Okay, here's our key up here. The key green bar is women, blue is men, and red is children. So we can see that that's not something that is explicitly said in the title, that it's women, men, and children. But we have people here, so we can sort of assume that it's these three groups. Okay, so that's the first thing that you need to do. When you have a chart like this, you need to have a look around to see what kind of information is included. What is the chart about? And therefore, what will you have to write about? So that's the first step, okay? That's the first thing I would do. So there we have what we'll need to talk about, okay? And it's all around, top, on the sides, and at the bottom, and that's reflected in the question here, okay? So the next thing I would do, while I'm still looking at it, I would, because what you need to do is summarize the information in the chart, okay? Now, to do this, it's impossible. You can't talk about everything in here. You need to choose, pick and choose the most important things. So what would you choose to mention? Remember, guys, you only have 150 words. It's not very long, okay? So your next task is to identify the things that you need to talk about. So the thing that that sticks out to me, the thing that jumps out, when you look at the chart, what jumps out to you? What do you notice? Because the things that you notice are the things that you need to talk about. And this, for me, is obviously something to talk about here. What else? Okay, so we're going to talk about the top and the bottom. What else can we say? Oh, look at this. This is quite low. And interestingly, it's also low here. Okay, so I probably talk about these in my writing. Okay. What else? I would probably also mention the fact that the red ones have declined, so you could mention that. Okay, you could say for 3 years in a row, from 2006 to 2008, the number of children having breakfast at home has declined. So that's something that you could say. You could also remark that the same trend occurred here. We could say that overall, if you look at overall, even though there's an exception here, we could say that overall the number of children having breakfast at home has declined. From 2002 was low, but from 2003 to 2008, it's gone down significantly. What else would I mention? Okay. I'd probably talk about fluctuation as well. Okay, so we have some significant fluctuation in the number of women who have, let me change color, who have breakfast at home every day. We start up here quite high. It goes down, it goes up, it goes down, it goes right up, it goes back down again. So we have a clear fluctuation fluctuation means, if you remember from the previous chapter on language, fluctuate is when things change, they go up and down. Okay, so let's make a note of the key points to mention. Okay, so what did I say? I said, so 2007 was the highest women having breakfast at home. Overall, women, numbers of women, sorry, my spelling's not very good. Oops. Fluctuate. And then numbers of children having breakfast at home have decreased. And for men, 2002 and 2008 were both the lowest years to in the chart. Okay. So I think the key takeaway from this chart is that it's a case of fluctuation. I don't think we can say that, you know, overall the number has declined particularly, maybe slightly. So children, I think, have declined, whereas the number of men and women having breakfast outside is fluctuating quite dramatically, but we can't say there's a clear increase over the time from 2002 to 2008, and we can't say that there's a clear decrease. Okay, so that's going to be our overall sort of overview. Okay. Okay, so that's your first step when you approach. Okay, when you approach and when you sit down and you look at the graph in front of you in the exam, your first step is to process the information in this way. Okay. Obviously, you have a limited time to do that. You need to practice doing it many times in order to become fast and familiar with how to do it. But, you know, the way I tend to do it, I suggest you do, look at the title, understand the title, look around the graph to find out what information is included. Okay, what are you going to have to report? And then have a look at the key features within it. What is the highest number? What is the lowest number? Are there any clear fluctuations? Are we, you know, things that you should say about fluctuations? Okay, are there trends? Okay, over a period of time? Does it go up for a while and then come down and then go up again for a while? So these are the key, and I'm going to put that up here. Okay, key points, KY. So I got a new keyboard the other day and I'm not used to it yet. Okay, key points to include in your analysis. Okay, so this is my approach. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll move on to the actual writing. Okay, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, guys, so we've sort of had a look at, you know, the overview. We've looked at the graph. We've processed it. We've looked at the information around it. We've had a look to see what the key points that we might include. Of course, these things can change as we write, but the things that we may decide to include, we've identified. Okay. Moving on to the next step of the process. Next step of the process is to write your introduction. So remember, guys, you only have 150 words, and you know, to you it might sound like a lot, but it's really not. Okay, 150 words is not very long, okay? And you have to include, make sure to include everything that you need to include in the, in the time that you have. So if you do it properly, if you write a good report, 150 words is about the right length for the time that you have. If you find yourself writing 300 words, then it's probably most of it pointless or nonsense. Again, if you only manage to write 50, that's clearly not going to be enough to summarize the information. So there's a reason why they set the limit at 150, because they believe that in the time that you have, that should be sufficient to get across the key details. Okay, guys, so we've looked at our charts, and we've interpreted the information, we've absorbed the information, we've identified the kind of key information to include. So then we have to start with our introduction. So remember, the introduction is a paraphrase. A paraphrase of what paraphrase means is to change language, to change sentences, keep the meaning, but change some of the words so that you show the examiner that you're able to understand what it says, and that your vocabulary is enough to be able to rephrase the introduction here, okay, or the title question. So that's what we have to do with this here, okay? The job is to paraphrase this, rephrase it, okay? So let's try for our introduction. Okay, so what can we say? The chart, we can say bar, graph. I think chart and graph tend to be fairly interchangeable, okay? The bar graph shows, instead of shows, let's say gives. And then information, because we have to give something, gives information on the percentage of Spanish people. So let's say the number, instead of percentage, there's percentages of numbers, aren't they? Bar graph gives information on the number of Spanish people. Can we say Spanish people? We can, but let's rephrase. Let's find a synonym or a different way to say that. On the number of Spanish, or let's say the number of men, women, children who have breakfast. Oops. Home. And actually here we need to change one thing. Have you noticed something I missed? If you look at the dates, it's 2002 to 2008, so we're in the past, obviously, right? Let's make sure our verbs are in the past tense. Okay, so the bar graph gives information on the number of men, women, and children who had breakfast at home. Oh, and we missed another one. Children in Spain who had breakfast at home between 2002 and 2008. Now, obviously, we're repeating that here between 2002 and 2008 is not, we haven't paraphrased everything, but I think it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. It's some things are very difficult to paraphrase, I mean, it's simple as that, right? My recommendation to you is don't spend hours, or minutes trying to figure out how to paraphrase perfectly, okay? If you've done a pretty good job, it's, you'll be okay. You don't have to change every word, okay? I don't think it's really something to worry about. So here's our introduction now, okay? The bar graph gives information on the number of men, women, and children in Spain who had breakfast at home between 2002 and 2008. Now, we've changed this, okay, what we've done. So to make your introduction, you have to paraphrase, you have to change this on the question when you get your question, okay? So we changed chart, we've changed to bar graph, we've changed shows, we changed it to gives, or gives information. We've changed percentage to number. We've changed people to men, women, and children. We changed Spanish to in Spain. And the rest we've kept. I mean, if we want to be really, really strict about the paraphrasing, we could change these, but I think it's okay as it is there, okay? So that's your step one. Make your introduction by rephrasing the question, or the question information, okay? Then what do you have to do? Your job now is to write an overview. Okay, remember guys, what's an overview? The overview is where you give general information about the graph or chart or whatever it is, okay? We're not going to talk about specific details yet. Remember, we identified things like this and these. Okay, these points to mention. We will not talk about these now. We'll do that later. Now is the overview, where we give a general view, a general sort of summary of the data. So what can we say in general about this information? Okay, so we already identified previously that there's a lot of fluctuation. It's going up and down, up and down, up and down. But we can also note that, and we can also say for sure that overall, the number of children having breakfast at home is decreasing. So from 2002 to 2008, it has decreased. And definitely from 2003 up here to 2008, it has decreased. So I think that's an overall thing that we can mention, okay? So let's go in with, and I recommend starting your overview with overall, okay? You can use this word at the beginning of your overview every time, almost every time. So overall, the number of people having breakfast, my spelling's so bad today, at home fluctuated between 2002 to 2008, but the number of children having, let's change from having breakfast. I want to repeat having breakfast. Go. Let's eating their first meal of the day at home decreased over 6 years. Okay, so there's our overview. Okay, we're not talking about numbers here. Okay, there's no mention of specific percentages. There's no mention of kind of like comparing years, really. I'm not saying that, you know, this is bigger than this. We're not doing any comparison. We're giving a general look at the data. Overall, the number of people having breakfast at home fluctuated between 2000 to 2008. That's right. Overall, I mean, because mostly men and women both fluctuated. However, the number of children eating their first meal of the day at home decreased over the 6 years. Okay, we're not saying decreased significantly. It didn't decrease significantly, but there's a general downward trend, as we've sort of pointed out. I mean, there's an exception in this year, but then it goes back down again. So I would say that, you know, there's a general downward trend of it, even from here to here, it goes down a bit. So we have the trend that we can say overall for that. Oops. Okay, so that's our overview. So that's it. Step one, introduction, paraphrase the sort of question, overview. Step two, give general information. Nothing specific yet. Now we move on to our analysis. Oops. This is the third paragraph. And this is where we start to be specific. I don't think I'm going to have enough space. I'm going to have to move a few things onto, let's move introduction up. We'll get rid of this. Need it right now. Get rid of this line as well. We'll stick this up here, and then we'll put this here, and then, okay, we should have enough room. And it's only 150 words. It's not like, you know, it's not a book. It's not a, you know, it's short. So let's start with our analysis. So I think the best thing would be, well, you can approach it in two ways. You can either approach it by analyzing women, men, and children separately, or you can do it by year. Okay, so you could talk about the years, and then you could talk about the men and women within that year and compare them. I think that the simplest way for me, because we only have three main groups, I think it's easier to talk about them separately. Okay, so let's start with the first one, which is women anyway. So let's go. Let's just start. Okay, between 2002, oops, 2008. Women having breakfast at home fluctuated. Okay. In 2002, the number was, what did you say, guys? 83%, something like that. 83%, which dropped to, let's focus on this one here. Okay, because we had a high here. It's still pretty high here, but it does drop significantly. So that's the kind of thing to mention, which dropped to, oh, what's that, 65, something like that, in 2006, but then peaked. Oops, terrible, this keyboard. Peaked. What's the highest? I reckon that's 93, something like that. 93% in 2007. Okay, so between 2002 and 2008, women having breakfast at home fluctuated. In 2002, the number was 83%, which dropped to 65% in 2006, but then peaked at 93% in 2007. So what we've done there is we've described. Let's get rid of this. We've described the trends. Okay, we described how this is. How this has gone, haven't we? Okay. I think we don't need to really mention this because this is the key one. We want to emphasize the peak. Okay, here. So we can leave it there. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to talk about men. Okay, so what can we say about the men? So the thing that we identified before, earlier on, when we first analyzed the graph, was that these two years were low. They were the lowest years. So I think that we'll start with that. So both 2002 and 2008 were years where few men had breakfast at home. And then what can we say? 2002, 40%. 40%, oops, $40, 40%, and I don't know, 38% respectively. Between these, let's say between 2002 and 2008, the number of men having breakfast at home fluctuated significantly, because it does go up and down quite sort of, here we go, it's quite a big increase here, and it's quite a big sort of drop here. So we can say significantly peaking at how many? 72%, something like that, 72% in 2004. Okay, fine. So we describe the men. I'm just going to make this smaller so we can actually fit everything in. Let's make this one. No, I'll just keep that the same. Okay. Now we need to move on and talk about the children. Okay, so let's talk about the children. So we identify that children overall, as we said, overall, the number of children eating their first meal decreased over the 6 years. But let's be more specific. Let's give some details. Let's give some specific numbers. So the number of children eating peaked at how many percent? I'd say 79%. 79% in 2003. And declined to, what's that, in 2005? 60%. 60% in 2005. This picked up again slightly in 2006 to 65, 66%. But then declined significantly to its lowest number in 2008, when only how many percent? 45% of children, Spanish children, children had there we go. Brilliant. Okay, so let's make sure that we've got all the information we need. We've included our introduction, which is the paraphrase of this. We've included an overview, which just talks about the main points. Okay, and we've given an analysis, which talks about the percentages. Okay, the specific percentages, specific numbers. Okay. Just to recap on how we did it, and maybe we'll color it in. We will just to color code our answer to make it a little clearer. Okay, let's color code the answer to make it a little bit clearer. Let's call the introduction green. So our introduction is green, Our overview can be yellow. Okay, our overview is yellow. And then we decided to approach it in a specific way by talking about women, men, and children one by one. As I mentioned before, there's another way to do it, which is to talk about the years, and then within each year to compare men and women and children. But I think that way is slightly more complicated. So the easiest way is to just talk about the groups separately. So between 2002 and 2008, women having breakfast at home fluctuated. In 2002, the number was 83, which dropped to 65% in 2006, but then peaked to 93% in 2007. There's women. Okay, so our first two sentences are about women. Our next one, which we'll do pink, we talk about men. So men are pink. Okay, the next, I guess, two sentences as well are about men. And the last one, which we'll do orange, is children. So the last two sentences we have are about children. So that's how we've constructed our, our main paragraph, or analysis paragraph, by just doing 1, 2, 3, by going step by step through each group in the chart. Okay. Okay, guys. Now we finish writing. It's time to find out how many words we've written. Are we all right, or are we a bit short? What do you think? I think we might be a little bit short on words, but we're going to just find out now. Let me just copy and put these into Google Docs just to get a word count. If you guys know a better way to do this, please let me know. I'm using this great program, which I love, this Active Inspire here to sort of teach you. Obviously, it can't do everything. I don't think it can count my words, but maybe it can. But if you know a quick way, oops, that's the wrong page. Quick way to check, let me know. We'll find out. Okay, so here's our report. Let's just make sure these are all the same size. There we are. Cool. So what do you think, guys? Do we have 150 words, or are we short? Let's check. Word count. Words, 171. There we are, 171. So we made it. Yay. All right, we got more than 150. In fact, we got a good number. I think 170 is quite good. Anything longer, maybe too much. I think 160, 170, maybe 180 is okay. But it's over 150, that's the key. Good. All right, so that's basically, that's that. Okay, so that's my approach to writing task 1 assignment for a bar chart. Okay, let's just briefly recap before we finish. And what do we do first? Okay, we look at the chart. We absorb, we process, we understand the task, what you have to do, and we understand the information, we process the information. We look around the chart to make sure that we have everything we need. Okay, what's the date? What kind of numbers are we looking at? What groups of people are we talking about? Is it a specific place? Is it Spain? Is it the UK? Is it India? Okay, we need to understand all of these details. And then what we do is we zero in on the data and we highlight the key points, the highest, the lowest, the trends, anything that jumps out at you, anything interesting you want to talk about. Okay. Then we write our introduction, which is a paraphrase of the question. We write the overview, which just gives some general details, well, not even details, general points. And then we move on to our analysis. Okay. And our analysis is based on the the things that we identified at the beginning. And the easiest way to do it is to go group by group in this case. Okay. Okay, guys, thank you for that. I hope it's been useful. Okay. Next, we're going to move on to how to tackle line graphs. Similar, but there may be some slight differences. So I'll make a video and show you how to do that next. Okay. All right, guys, thanks very much.